Actual Fluency Podcast, episode 39 with André Müller.
Welcome to the Actual Fluency Podcast, the podcast that gives you the tools and inspiration to learn languages faster and more efficiently. And now your host, Chris Broholm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Actual Fluency Podcast. And this week, I'm very excited to be talking to Mr. André Müller. And right off the gate, I'm apologizing to André because I just can't say the combination of those two names. So if you hear me make a mistake in the interview, please forgive me. But before we get into that interview, I just wanted to give two quick points of information. The first one is that as this goes live, it'll be very soon before December 10th. And if you're listening to this podcast before December 10th and are in London, then please come join the Actual Fluency Meetup, the first meetup I'm organizing, and it's going to be in the middle of London. So there's really no excuse if you're living close to London or indeed in London. And what we're going to do is we're going to meet up, have a beer, just practice some languages or just talk about learning languages and meet some new people. And it's going to be quite a lot of fun. And I see that quite a few people have signed up already, so hopefully we'll have a good evening, and that will be at the 10th of December. So if you're listening to this in the future, it was a shame that you couldn't make it, or if you did make it, it was nice to see you. But be sure to check out the meetups page for new meetups. In the year 2015, I'm planning a meetup in Athens during the summer period. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be fun as well. And of course, there's the Polyglot gathering in Berlin. I'm happy to say hi to people, to listeners from the podcast. So if you're coming to the Polyglot gathering, which I really suggest you do, and if you are planning on going, I suggest you register really soon because it usually sells out, or at least last year it sold out very quickly. And this year they've already had a ton of registrations, even though it's only been open for a few days. So, if you want to join the Polyglot gathering, which is, 4 days of polyglottery, tons of interesting talks, networking with amazing people, and most important of all, just speaking a ton of languages, then please do sign up for the Berlin Polyglot gathering. And Judith Mayer, one of the organizers, along with Chuck Smith, I've been talking to, and also did a podcast interview with both of them. And I'm also getting Chuck to come back on the podcast to talk about what's different this year. And also he's going to talk a little bit about developing the Duolingo Esperanto course. So that'll be really cool. So a ton of meetups in the new year. There's also the Polyglot conference in New York City. The date has been somewhat confirmed to October 10th to 11th. And if you're interested in going there, I also suggest that. It's a little bit more formal style of event than the gathering, but it's also great to meet people and lots of really cool talks. And of course, New York City, I'm definitely planning on going. I've never been to America, so I'm super excited about going. And again, if you are around the neighborhood, please let's meet up and catch up with what's been going on. So that was all about the meetups. And the other piece of information I just wanted to give is, I think that one of the biggest things that changed my language learning recently was getting tutoring. And people always told me, get a tutor. And I was like, oh, yeah, I will. But how? And, I wrote this really long post about it. And you can read that on actualfluency.com/tutor. And basically, it was just scary for me to talk to someone in a foreign language, or indeed just any language, I suppose. I'm a bit of a shy person. But I finally pulled the trigger, and for the 2 months after I did that first lesson, my language learning has just exploded. Like seriously, when I did my first tutoring lessons, I could barely say hello. And now I regularly sustain, 30 to 40 minute, even an hour long conversations in Russian. And it's just all because I took the plunge of getting tutoring. And of course, now I'm staying to the tutoring by, having weekly lessons on the weeks that I'm able to. And that's really giving me not only the things you get in the sessions. I think that's maybe a little bit of a misconception. It's not necessarily only what you learn during the lessons. It's also because you get motivated outside of the lessons to do well in the lessons. So when I'm not in a tutoring lesson of Russian, I'm still kind of thinking about the lessons because I want to do better in them. I want to be able to say new words to my tutor, and I want to be able to sort of explain myself better. And the best site to find tutors I've found is italki. And, you could go to italki.com directly, but if you want to, support the show here and tell italki that I sent you, and this is my, very honest and heartful recommendation. This is not just a light-hearted moment. This is definitely a very thorough recommendation because I'm using it every week. If you want to tell them that I sent you, you can go to actualfluency.com/italki, and that will redirect you to the italki page. But either way, it's totally fine. It's not about me. It's about you. So if you want to kick up your language learning, then go to italki and get a tutor. Try some different ones until you find the right one, and you're going to kill it. And actually, why not? Let's make it interesting. If you go to italki and get your first lesson, and you send me a screenshot or just a note that you've done your first lesson to chris@actualfluency.com, I'm going to give you a free voucher for another lesson. And this offer is open to 5 people. So the first 5 will send me an email with proof that they registered a session. We'll get a session for free. So in reality, getting tutoring hasn't cost you a thing. That was all I had to say for this time. I'm sorry I ranted on a little bit longer than usual, but now it's time to get the interview with Mr. André Müller. All right, everyone. Today I've got a very special guest. He's a PhD student at the University of Zurich, where he studies linguistics, and we'll get into just in a moment what that kind of linguistics that is. But I'm very happy to introduce the person who's been teaching me Esperanto for the last few months, Mr. André Müller. How are you today, André?
Hi. Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
And I guess I should tell the backstory of the Esperanto, and that's, of course, you have done a lot of work on Forvo, where you put your voice to use pronouncing the Esperanto words, and those words have then been synced with Memrise's Esperanto courses. And so you've been in my ear for a few months now.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that, actually.
well, thank you for doing it anyway. It's cool that people, take the time. I noticed you record a lot of things. So
yeah, also in German, I received some emails from people who liked my German pronunciation because they say it's very natural, and because some other people on Forvo, they pronounce words like very carefully.
Right.
But I just pronounce them like I would speak, like I pronounce this word. So blah.
Yeah. I think that's a great thing. And Forvo is obviously a fantastic resource for something like an Anki, well, not an Anki deck, sorry, a flashcard deck, because you get immediate audio. You don't have to sort of make the deck and then ask someone to record it. It's an automatic feature. So I'm really enjoying that. But maybe we should take a step back. We all see you all over the Facebook Polyglot groups when everyone is asking about, script-related questions.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody ping Andre. Somebody ping Andre.
Yeah.
And but maybe some people haven't yet pinged you about a script question. So maybe take a step back and give us a little, the Cliff Note stories of how you got into languages and then decided to, how to get into university with doing languages and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. Okay. I think it all started in my childhood, as it usually does. And I think I was fascinated with writing systems in primary school already, and already in primary school in Germany, I started learning the Cyrillic script for Russian, and my parents helped me with that because they had Russian in school. I didn't, and my grandmother used to be able to write stenography or shorthand, German shorthand, and she taught me how to do that. Wow. So I was never fast in writing shorthand, but I could write it at some point. And then Greek, I was interested in the Greek alphabet, and so on and so on. In the 5th grade, I started learning the Arabic alphabet, and then Hebrew, and then I jumped into Chinese and Japanese and Korean, and and it went on and on. And I think, I think after I finished school in 2004, I was probably able to write 20 or 18 writing systems, and by now it's even a little bit more. So it's, I guess, 22 writing systems that I can write now. And that's how it started. And of course, through writing systems, I got also interested in languages in general. And I wanted to know, okay, those letters, how exactly are they pronounced? And then you look at them up in books, and then you see, oh, wow, this language actually is very interesting. And so I started collecting dictionaries, and I started collecting grammars, and I was very interested. And at some point, Wikipedia was invented, and there was everything. Everything was online, and I looked everything up. And and later on after school, I decided, why not study linguistics? I didn't know that was an available course at first, but then after someone told me, linguistics, that could be something for you. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, why not? So I decided to study at my university in Leipzig in Germany, to study linguistics, and as my second major, because we needed 2 majors, I chose Chinese.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. And then you finish your bachelor and your master, and now you're at the PhD.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So after my master, or actually magister, I decided, I have to do more, and I jumped into a PhD program. I applied and got accepted, and now I'm doing my PhD in Zurich, at the University of Zurich in Switzerland, on language contact in northern Burma.
Wow. It's very exotic, I would say.
Yeah. So.
There's a lot of young people listening to the podcast, or even some people who are a little bit older but haven't, had the time or the desire to go to university yet, but they still are considering going into linguistics. Mm-hmm. What are the things that people need to know about, studying linguistics at an academic level compared to, just casually learning languages? Can you give a little Cliff Notes version of what people should expect?
Okay, so many people who love languages hear about linguistics and they think, oh, wow, I want to study linguistics because that's just all languages. Or some people can't decide what language they want to study. So they just say, oh, I study just all languages, linguistics, general linguistics. Right. But it's not quite like that, because even though some language learning is part of linguistics at the university, it's not really about language learning. It's more about studying how to analyze languages and how to analyze them, how languages can work, how they do not work, and how the brain works with languages. So it's not just individual language learning, like I'm learning Latin and Greek and Spanish or something. You look into many languages and then you see, okay, there's a pattern. If a language, for example, has subject, verb, object pattern, it usually also has prepositions or something like that. Mm-hmm. And those things you notice, or okay, they tell you and they show you that this is the case. And then you learn how these things are connected to each other, and how, for example, pronunciation is connected to words, and how syntax is connected to the meaning and things like that. So it gets quite abstract, and it can be quite technical, and you could say it can get sometimes it can get very dry. Mm-hmm. But I always enjoyed it, actually.
So people should be a little bit wary or careful with choosing linguistics just because they like languages, because it's not really, it's much more much more than just language. It's all about the technical, finer aspects.
Yeah, it's right. It's not just language learning, and it's also not translation. It's really science, and it's scientific. It's you can compare it to physics or biology or something with less formulas, but there are formulas as well. And
right.
Sometimes statistics is important, and so but it's also important that it's not. I mean, general linguistics, what I studied, is not translation. You never do any translations. And some people think that if you study general linguistics, you learn how to translate things or to how to express yourself better. But that's not a part of linguistics.
Well, that's good. I think we gave a nice little public service message there for linguistics, because I have to echo the kind of the same sentiment. When I was I was just doing English, and we had a linguistics course. So if you can imagine linguistics as the great seas of the world, I had less than a glass of water of linguistics. It's absolutely massive, but obviously my introduction to linguistics was very basic. But even there, I could feel that, this is just not for me. This is way too kind of technical. It takes away some of the excitement about language if you have to dig that deep into it. It's kind of like, a poem could be really nice, but sometimes if you overanalyze it, it's like,
Yeah, it's like it sometimes loses its how to say. It loses its charm.
Yeah.
But I think languages sometimes can, for me, languages can gain some charm if they are analyzed. So, for example, there's a language and you've heard about it and you think, it's just some language. And then you analyze it in detail and you see, oh, wow, actually the phonology is extremely interesting. Like Danish, for example. I think you're a native speaker of Danish, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And for everyone else, you say Danish and they, that's this northern language, just like Swedish and Norwegian. And the structure is pretty much the same, I think, like in Swedish and Norwegian. But when you look at the pronunciation, at the phonetics and the phonology, it's extremely interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And of course, there will be people out there who's sitting like, oh my God, this sounds so exciting. When can I sign up? So I'm not trying to discourage anyone from it. I mean, it's just trying to
neither would I.
The both sides of the argument. So the obvious question is, if you really love scripts and you say that after a while you got into learning the languages because obviously you wanted to see how the scripts were put to use.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of transition into, let's say, knowing a million scripts and then, how do you transition into learning them? Because obviously now you have, let's say, 18 scripts to choose from. How did you say, I'm just going to do 5 minutes of each language every day? Or how did you choose and what did you go from there?
So I have to say, for the 20-something scripts I can read and write, I usually don't know the languages of them. So I can read and write the Arabic script, but I don't know any Arabic. I know a few words and I can say I'm a student or something, but I have never really learned Arabic as a language.
Right.
For example, and the same goes for Korean and for Khmer or Hindi or something. For example, in school I had English, of course, and German is my mother tongue, and I also had French in school, but I didn't really enjoy it, I have to admit. And then, I think then in 11th grade, I heard about Esperanto for the first time, and I thought, Esperanto, that sounds interesting. And I just started looking into it, and I thought, wow, it's so easy. And I was just looking into it, and I was already learning. I was already learning it, and then I started to enjoy language learning. And I wanted to know more, and I wanted to look into other languages. So I started a little bit with Finnish, which I don't speak, but I looked into it. And I sort of looked into all kinds of languages. So into Finnish, and then Bulgarian, and a little bit of Russian and Latin and Spanish and Chinese and so on. And then I started studying. So I had to learn Chinese and later classical Chinese. But I also thought, at the university, you have this, at least in our university, we had so many language courses that were offered, and usually for the people who really study that subject.
Of course.
But I thought, I still have time. Why not study some Tibetan? So in my first semester, I studied 1 semester of Tibetan. In my second semester, what was it? I think Indonesian. And then it was Xhosa. And
what, was this the University of very obscure languages, or
yeah, so to speak? Yeah, it's just the University of Leipzig, but
it's so
we
cool,
had,
though. I mean,
we have a lot of
very
courses.
unusual. So
Yeah.
you got into it via the university, and
Yeah, I think.
but you can't. Could you learn much of one of those languages in 1 semester only?
Not really. So I learned quite a lot in Indonesian in 1 semester, and I got the basics of Russian in 1 semester. But what I was more interested, I was more interested in learning about the grammar of the language and how the language internally works, or how it's pronounced and those things. Than in really learning to speak the language. So it was fun being able to say some things like, this is a table, this is not a chair, this is a book. That's nice to say. But I was more interested in, oh wow, the genitive construction works like that. And oh wow, they put the verb at the end. And those things were much more interesting for me.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, that makes sense if you're kind of into linguistics. Then that's the mindset, isn't it?
From a scientific perspective. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. And of course, it's what Chinese was it, by the way? Was it Mandarin or?
Yeah, it was Mandarin.
All right, and that became your what do you call it, minor? The second.
Well, actually, in our university, it was the magister, so we could choose between either 2 majors or 1 major and 2 minors. So I chose 2 majors.
Right. Yeah, this seems like a sensible decision.
Yeah.
So you got a lot. You got fine Chinese.
Yeah, I was at the beginning of my Chinese class. I was quite good. I was almost the best of class, but then I got lazy and I thought, I can do all of that. It's no problem. But then I got really bad, and I was almost the worst of my class.
Wow.
And and I got extremely lazy, and I thought, oh no, this vocabulary, and I can't practice it. And if I talk to Chinese people, I can't understand them. They can't understand me. So I got really bad, and I was surprised about myself because I thought that's not me.
Yeah.
And then I was in Berlin, and I visited a friend, a fellow polyglot. I think you know her, Judith Meyer.
Yes.
Yeah. And I visited her, and she also knows Chinese. So I told her, I'm bad. What should I do about Chinese? And she said, why don't you use Anki? And I didn't know Anki.
Right.
So she showed me, and Anki is that vocabulary learning program, and it's so useful. And I used to practice with flashcards, but with cardboard flashcards or paper flashcards before. But it's always difficult because I always had to devise a system. Okay, where do I have to put this card now? This is the card from yesterday. So it was difficult, but now a computer could do everything, and I just have to answer the question. So it's so easy. And by relearning all the vocabulary with Anki, within 1 year, I got really good again. Okay. And then I decided to go to China. And I spent a year in China, in Kunming, in the south of China. And that was amazing because at the beginning it was still a bit difficult because, foreign country, and they all speak very fast and they have a kind of dialect there.
Of course.
But I got into it, and after half a year, I could understand them and I could speak, and everything was fine.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. I mean, quite an inspirational story. I would say that you were almost down and out. I mean, you were pretty much ready to just give up on the language, and then
I really for 2 or 3 semesters, after every semester I decided, no, I will give up Chinese. I will stop learning Chinese. I will keep studying linguistics, and I thought maybe I should choose like German for foreigners or something like that. but people said, no, you have to try Anki and so on. You will manage it. And yeah, they were right, apparently.
That's great. I mean, that's awesome to find that some kind of technological help or assistance totally changed the game. And I guess that's true for just everyone in general. If you go back, 50 years or something where we didn't have computers, then flashcarding can only be done by hand. And I mean, it only gets so good, right? There's not much science behind reading the back of a card and then putting it in a pile. Whereas, the Anki has all these options of how long do you want it to go away from, and Memrise is even more advanced. It's built on, research at the universities where they determine the optimum time of renewal based on just before you were supposed to forget it. That's true. It's really cool, and it's so sciencey. When I heard about it, I was like, "Wow, really? You do all this?" I thought it was just sort of, 3 hours is probably fine. That's when you need to review a word again. But yeah, it's apparently based on tons and tons of research that shows that that's when you are probably going to forget it, or just before is the ideal time. So you keep in mind, the memory theories, the old spaced repetition theories and everything.
And you can also adjust it. So, for example, Thai. I'm also learning Thai. So at the moment, I'm learning Thai and Burmese with Anki, and I noticed that Burmese is very hard to remember for me, but Thai is very easy to remember. I can. Yeah, it's strange. And so I changed the time of Thai a little bit.
Right.
So they come much later.
Yeah, but that's exactly the advancements that we have now. So you don't waste time on renewing things that you easily know already. I can only say the same with Russian. I know some Russian vocabulary is great because it comes from English, and it's like, oh yeah, that's easy. And then there's the words that are about as long as a sheet of paper, and they don't look anything like English, and you're like
достопримечательность.
Yeah, that's a perfect example, right? And I think I had the word for agricultural the other day, and it was like selskohosestvenost or selskohosestveni.
Oh wow!
And it's like, what the? I mean, the letter was so long that the Memrise window had a scroll bar all of a sudden. I had never seen that before. I had literally never seen that before. So for me, Russian is also a lot harder to memorize than, for instance, Esperanto. And I know that's very probably the best example of an easy to remember vocabulary, but still, I only needed one or two reviews of a Esperanto word before I remembered it. Whereas in Russian, it might take me sometimes more than 10.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So it's great that we have that flexibility, and also that we don't have to worry about it ourselves, because the system is going to send it back to us at some point.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not our responsibility, because once you guessed it right or wrong, the system is going to be like, okay, we'll send that to you in due course,
Yeah, right. But like, for example, today when I went back home from the university, I was practicing Anki in the tram, and one word showed up, which was the word for this in Thai, which is ni, and I hit easy, and I will see this word again in 5.7 years. It's amazing. And I thought, wow, it's.
So it's from when you started the.
Probably. It was definitely from the first words.
That's funny. That's really funny. Speaking of Esperanto and conlangs, it must have been pretty awesome to have discovered Esperanto so early. Did you do anything with it later? I mean, since you decided to speak the pronunciations on Forvo, did you have anything to do with the Esperanto organization after?
Well, a little bit. So for Forvo, that was just for fun. I just thought, oh, cool. They don't have so many Esperanto speakers yet, so I pronounced some words for them or for the website. But very early, so I learned Esperanto in 2002. And then half a year later, I already went to my first Esperanto meeting in Sweden, in Lesjöfors. That's no one has ever heard it. It's a very tiny town in the middle of nowhere.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, really. and that was really cool because there were so many young Esperanto speakers, and I spoke Esperanto with them, and it was almost the first time that I really saw, wow, it really works. And afterwards, I decided to be much more active in Esperantujo, as we say, in the Esperanto world. So I helped to organize some Esperanto meetings for beginners in Germany when I was a better speaker then, and I taught Esperanto at those meetings. I even decided to teach Esperanto for one semester at my university in Leipzig.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I was also kind of the founder or co-founder of the a weekly Esperanto meeting in Leipzig, in my hometown. And at the beginning we were only like 3 people, and then we were 4, and then we were 5, and I think at some point we were like 15.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's nice to see the development. Recently I posted a topic of writing about Esperanto and my kind of introduction to it, and if people are interested in reading about that, it's actualfluency.com/Esperanto. But one of the reasons that I think Esperanto is a good idea is because of what you're talking about here, the community. And I think that the linguistic sort of advantages to learning Esperanto are quite limited if you already know a few languages. I think it's fantastic if you're like 12 years old or something and you speak maybe a language and a half, and you're not really sure if it's possible to learn languages.
Yeah.
Like, some of those studies that have been done, I find that absolutely amazing. And like you said, you had a similar kind of experience with Esperanto. It was like, oh, it's easy, so I'll try other languages.
Yeah, that's right.
But do you have any, is that basically it? Or am I forgetting some reasons for why people should learn Esperanto?
So that's definitely one great point. And for example, my girlfriend, who's from Russia, but she's also an Esperanto speaker. I met her in France in an Esperanto meeting, and we always speak Esperanto to each other.
Oh, that's cool.
And she also started learning Esperanto when she only knew Russian and very little English, because the school system and it's not so common for Russian people to speak very good English, and she was one of them. And but when she easily learned Esperanto, she noticed, oh wow, it is actually possible to learn a language and speak it fluently.
Right.
And after that, she improved very much with her English as well. And then she learned German, and now she's learning Italian.
Oh.
Yeah,
it's scary what sort of limits that we can set on ourselves. I mean, it's obviously something to do with society. It's not, I don't suppose people are born with the limit in their mind, but I think that it's like we grow up and, it's just a kind of a society's reaction. It's like, oh yeah, you speak, 2 languages or maybe even 1. If you can, I guess the problem is in Russia, if you can manage with only Russian forever, then why would you learn another language?
I think that's the case, yeah.
I mean, if I only knew Danish, for instance, I could do nothing. I could be a potato farmer here. That would be nice. That would be a nice life. But I could never go anywhere, and I could never go to like Copenhagen because there'd be too many people who didn't understand Danish. But it is truly remarkable. I feel that the sort of barriers, and that's why I really would like to do more with Esperanto. I'd really love to get into the school.
Yeah,
like get it into the young people.
Oh yeah, that would be great. And back to your question. So what else is amazing about Esperanto is the community. So it's amazing. We speak of a kind of Esperanto culture, and then people are like, but Esperanto is an invented language. How could it possibly have a culture? It's an invented culture. But actually, it's not. It's not an invented culture. It's so Esperanto is mainly spoken not only on the internet or at home sometimes, but also on conferences and meetings and festivals. And there are so many festivals where you can go to, and sometimes they have topics like, for a small meeting, the topic is nature and people discuss nature or something. But sometimes it's just music and fun and dancing and some lessons and lectures. And and that's amazing because you suddenly you are almost like in another country.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there are people from all over the world. They're really from all over the world, from all over Europe, whatever. And they're from France and from Spain and from Moldova, but they speak Esperanto and you can understand them. And it's a very different feeling from using English to communicate with people, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's like there's a culture shift when you decide to learn Esperanto. You're kind of saying to yourself and to the world that you're open to meeting people from other cultures.
Yeah,
so you're kind of existing in between countries. Almost, it's like when you're at an Esperanto meeting, it's like you are in a new country, sort of.
Yeah, it's like an international country, so to speak. It's like you don't feel like, okay, now I'm in Sweden,
right,
or France or wherever. Of course, you are there and the nature, and you see, oh wow, Sweden is really beautiful and everything. But the people, you don't feel like you are in a Swedish environment,
right,
because everyone speaks something else, and you can ask those people about their languages in Esperanto, and they can explain it. And
right. And speaking of conlangs, and I know some people will appreciate me for asking about this, but I just have to preface this next question with, I am not in any way a fan of anything that starts with star.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just going to preface it with that, but I'm going to ask you anyway. One of the things that I noticed about you when we met in Berlin was that you did a Klingon class.
Oh, yeah.
And it's obviously a short class. It was an hour or something. But obviously, so you know Klingon, but I guess why? Why? Yeah. I can understand Esperanto, but for me, Klingon is still a bit of a stretch. Can you maybe, are you just a big fan of the series or?
Yes, that too. So it all fits together because I've always been a Star Trek fan, and I love the series Star Trek and Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. And I've always been a language fan. So it all came together, and I thought, language, Star Trek, hey, there's a Klingon dictionary. I will buy that. Right. I will learn Klingon. And that happened already very early, also in primary school, I think. And at the beginning, I didn't really learn it. I looked at that and I thought, wow, how does that work? But over the time and later on, I really started learning it seriously. And it's not that hard. It's not as hard as people could imagine, right, but it's a real language. So it's not just gibberish. It's not just English with other words. It really has a grammar, a unique grammar. For example, the word order is object, verb, subject, which is exactly the inverse of English and German.
Yeah, I saw some pretty funny examples, but so it's a real language, which I guess is good news. It's not just a kind of a joke.
Yeah, it's not a joke, but it was like, it was invented for the Star Trek series or for the movies, and it was invented by a linguist. So, he tried to compile all the exotic stuff from different languages that he knew.
Cool. And do you have any plans of, or maybe have you learned other sort of, let's say, filmic or other of these sort of con languages that came out of popular culture?
Other conlangs, not many. I've learned a little bit Tokipona, which is also a conlang which is very small and very simple.
Right, the minimalist word vocabulary.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it's nice.
It's nice, yeah.
It's nice and cute, and I once learned it, but I forgot most of it, and I still like it very much. And I also bought the book by the author Sonja Lang, and maybe I will jump into it again someday.
I think she'll appreciate you calling it nice and cute. I think that was the original idea, actually. So there's actually going to be the memorized people. They're actually doing a Tokipona marathon
Oh, wow.
In about, okay, depending on, we might do a little Back to the Future, might do a little Back to the Future segment here, but on the in the middle of December, they're doing a...
Oh, yeah, 25th of September. When was it? The 15th of September?
Right.
Or
It's a two-day event, and sadly it's full, so there's no more spaces, but I think they're going to do a lot of stuff online. So if people are interested in Tokipona, I would suggest keeping an eye on the Memrise website, because there might be some videos and some blog posts. And of course, I'll be there and reporting for the actual Fluency blog, and I'll write down my experiences trying to learn a language in 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
If any language, right? That's the one to choose, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think you can actually manage it, because 120 words, you can just do the maths, how many words you have to learn in an hour with Anki or something, or memorize.
Yeah, I suppose the problem is you need to review them a few times.
Yeah.
So if you run through 120 words, you can probably do that in about an hour, 2 hours. That takes no time, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's 3 hours later when it's up for review, all 120, and then you get half of them wrong. And you have to relearn them, and then it's another 3 hours for some of them, and some will be 5 hours. And
you probably have to plan ahead how to learn them.
Exactly. And I hope that the Memrise people, being the brilliant linguistic scientists that they are, will have made a plan for us, so I don't have to do it. Or in case this goes out in the future, I'll obviously already be speaking Tokipona. But that's the beauty of Back to the Future in podcasting. We're not exactly live, but great. We've been around most of the subjects that I had in mind, and I see that they opened up the registration for next year's Polyglot gathering.
Oh yeah,
are you going to be joining?
I will, and I'm thinking, oh my God, already 50 people were joining just yesterday. Right. I think I have to be quick, but yeah, I plan to join, and
I guess that's another public service message. It's an amazing event, and you should sign up now, because it will be full. It was full last year, and then it was the first time last year. Nobody had heard about it. Nobody. We only knew about it through networking.
Yeah, that's right. They never made any commercial efforts or ads. Yeah,
it was like when it was like in a private Facebook group, and all the sort of the people in the Polyglot community got first dibs, and I think about 200 people. Maybe a little bit less, but about 150 signed up, and then they were like, "Let's make the Facebook group public," and that's when I saw it. And I was just like, oh my God, limited space, 20 spaces left. Oh my God, I'm gotta register now. And that was like, I didn't even check my bank account to see if I could even afford it or anything. No problem, just do it. And
worry about the money stuff later.
Exactly. And that's, I just want to say that to people who are sitting out there going like, should I participate or not? Yes, you should, and you should register early, because it will get sold out. I'm 100% sure.
Yeah. And they shouldn't worry about being a polyglot or not when they say, I just know 3 languages. Is that enough for polyglot? Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think knowing one is enough. I mean, there was one guy last time who only spoke English, and he had a lot of fun, I think.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And I guess it is a problem with the term polyglot, that you kind of have to know what it means to sort of understand that it's not that important.
Yeah.
But if you don't really know about it, then it might seem like a bit of a sort of mark of arrogance. It's like, oh, we got a little polyglot club here. But I think that would be misinterpreting it. I would call it aspiring polyglots.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because it's
I learned a lot, definitely.
Yeah, me too. And so much inspiration. Holy Jesus!
Yeah,
so much inspiration. Everyone was just like, when you saw those name tags with people who had like 15 languages and they just switched between them. And all those talks about how we can learn better and all those things. So I'm definitely excited to be there, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you and hear how the PhD is going, or it went maybe.
Oh yeah, well, it's still going on for 3 years.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah,
it's a long commitment.
Yeah.
All right, and Andre, if you have, do you have any places where people can find you, or any places you want to plug? Then this is your chance.
I used to have a blog, and I still have it, but I don't use it anymore. And so at the moment, I don't really have a website where people can really reach me.
But give them a link to your Facebook page. They can send you a message through there, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, that's possible. So if you want to add me on Facebook, the name you have to enter. So you can either enter my name, André Müller, or you can enter because everyone in Germany has that name, Müller. It's the most common name. So it's better to write my nickname. That's an Esperanto nickname. It's Vortarulo. So it starts with a V and then O-R-T. Vortarulo. Well, Vortarulo starts with a V and
Vortarulo,
yeah. It means dictionary guy because I collect dictionaries.
Right. Yeah, I see some of the pictures though. It's a very impressive collection.
Yeah, thank you.
And I must say, dictionaries are one of those things where I just refuse to get the physical copies because I was always useless in class. When people are like, "Oh yeah, look up the word," and I was like, "It takes ages." It takes ages. So when they introduce, Google Translate or all these multi-dictionaries where you can just search everything, that really changed my life. So I don't like having these bulky around, but obviously you started at a very early age.
Oh yeah, that's true. And I'm quite fast with dictionaries because it sounds strange when I say I memorize the order of the alphabet because who doesn't? But people say, okay, let's look up the word thorn in the dictionary, T, that's somewhere at the end, but I know exactly where it is.
You're
so
skilled.
Yeah, somehow.
Well, Andre, thank you so much for taking the time to come and share your story with us. And I'll be looking forward to seeing you in Berlin.
Yeah, me too.
And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Same to you.
Thank you.
And to the listeners.
Yeah, definitely. Happy New Year to everyone out there when you listen to this. All right. I'll see you later.
Yeah, see you later. Gisla revido.
Gisla revido.
Thank you for listening to the Actual Fluency Podcast. For more information, be sure to check out actualfluency.com. Until next time, enjoy learning and have a great day.